Hello guys, TKG here for your comfortable LostArk life. Today, I'm going to cover the recent KR regions and community status. Unlike the previous videos, I'm going to cover some issues that are currently argued in LostArk KR. So in other words, I'd like to discuss the reason why the current situation of LostArk is changing for the worse. First and foremost, there have been too many mistakes regarding economic issues, which is one of the most critical problems. As indicated in this text box, Season 3 seemed to begin as a fresh new starting point compared to Season 2, but it brought quite the opposite result. The sudden launch of Season 3 was surprising, but simultaneously, an overwhelming amount of contents and progression elements were introduced, significantly increasing the burden on players. Particularly, the progression factors of Season 3 were unlocked all at once, leading to an already limited supply of contents becoming even more strained. When paired with the difficulty level of Act 2, demand skyrocketed, causing the cost of engaging with the contents to become exorbitantly high. As some Korean streamers have commented, this amount of money could buy a home appliance, highlighting just how expensive it became. However, the post-crisis response was far below expectations. Particularly concerning was the lack of proactive measures to address these sensitive issues before they spiraled further out of control. Instead of providing consistent and periodic solutions to players, the developers stood idle for months, failing not only to protect their user base but also their own revenue streams. What was even more surprising was the director's comment during the previous live stream, where they acknowledged that internal metrics were exceedingly bad. As noted in earlier discussion, LostArk KL has not effectively implemented restriction against multi-account users. Consequently, character reaching at level of 1640, which can be easily achieved via passes, were being mass-produced on a large scale. These accounts collectively generate nearly 50% of the in-game gold. The shocking part is that the large quantity of gold flooding into the game made purchasing in-game currency with real money less efficient compared to sourcing it from external platforms. As a result, transactions in off-site marketplaces surged by 521%. In simple terms, the benefits and profit derived from the game were no longer going to either regular players or the developers, but were instead being absorbed by off-site markets. In other words, bots were dominating the economy, generating the bulk of resources and reaping most of the profit. Surprisingly, the current market and economic situation of the LostArk KL have hardly improved, which remains a major complaint among its players. Contrary to the director's ambitious statement of fixing the economy, the market seems to be heading in the opposite directions. Specifically, as players increasingly abandon the contents they used to enjoy, the downward trend has grown even more fast. What's even more matter is that despite this decline, the costs remain exorbitant. Why? Because no corrective action has been taken. The game has neither increased its internal supply nor implemented weekly measures to address the issue, leaving the system unchanged and unfair as ever. These high costs are not just an issue for new players building their character step by step, but also for those who have already invested a significant amount of money to partake in the contents. The truly baffling point here is that there is no significant difference in rewards. In other words, the lack of return makes it more advantageous to focus on minimal builds and parks one's character instead of spending lavishly to fully enjoy the game. As a result, the progression desire of the LostArk KL have naturally decreased. Rushing to level up is futile since the available contents remain extremely limited and the rewards from that contents aren't significantly different. Consequently, players are choosing to stay at their current levels. Furthermore, there's an overarching sentiment that if you wait a little longer, the developers will eventually fix or relax the unreasonable structure in the system, making it more worthwhile to progress later rather than now. Players need to spend in-game gold for economic calculations, But even this fundamental activity is failing to occur. Moreover, the current director and LostArk have consistently failed to keep promises and have largely ignored the demands of their players. To be precise, they have made the commitments but repeatedly postponed fulfilling them indefinitely. Additionally, the policies implemented have been highly disappointing. Notably, the recent rollback regarding GEM has amplified players' dissatisfaction further. If you are curious about the earlier GEM-related issues, please refer to the comment below or the bookmark at the right corner to access the relevant videos. Originally, these new gems could have been distinguishing factors for multi-accounts or identical multi-character users. This is because the new conversion system offered an additional attack power. However, the director retraction of these changes exacerbate the problem. The issue stems from the fact that this shift appeared to favor the players with identical multi-character rather than those who actively build diverse character across their roster. As such, players began voicing concerns in the community, suggesting that the game was effectively encouraging players to focus on identical character builds and multi-account. LostArk's raid, while well-designed, are heavily reliant on gimmicks, which can become monotonous over time. The notion of encouraging players to enjoy this raid with the same character repeatedly only added fuel to the fire of already negative player sentiment. Moreover, beyond the issues mentioned in the previous text box, the overall update have been incredibly sluggish. Even major contents like the raid or event raid, which were originally promised, remain unaddressed and lack proper updates. There were commitments to periodically introduce the event-based raid, but these promises have not been fulfilled at all. User experience related updates, which are basic expectations, have also been entirely neglected. For instance, the points highlighted in the text box could have been addressed through regular updates to show ongoing cares, yet nothing has been implemented. This marks a stark contrast compared to the previous director's errors. At the very least, active communication with the user base and willingness to gather and incorporate feedback would have been appreciated, but the lack of effort of these areas continued to disappoint players further. Initially, many players had the sentiment of let's wait and see until Kazero's last act, but even that hope has been abandoned, leading many to simply leave the game altogether, which is proving to be a significant problem. Of course, economic reasons and structural issues within the games are significant factors, but the loss of expectation seems to be a major reason why LostArk is getting worse. Moreover, LostArk is currently facing a major event, Luon Summer, scheduled to be revealed on June 21st. Despite this significant events, players' dissatisfaction and decline are accelerating, seemingly due to the absence of expectations. Or perhaps due to the ongoing policies, players have lost all expectations for the direction of the game. The overly predictable things of the contents also plays a role. What can they possibly showcase at Luon Summer? Likely they will unveil updates that have been repeatedly discussed before, such as the removal of tripods, delayed user experience, user interface patches, gem-related updates, and new female paladin class, and of course a new raid. Essentially, this event might become a showcase for updates that have been postponed until now. The true problem with this showcase lies in the fact that it presents a roadmap instead of immediately implementing updates. Even if something is showcased, players will still need to wait for it to be released. Honestly, it is hard not to think that the company should take more responsibility for how they are earning their revenues. From the dedicated players who spent substantial amounts of money and to those who consistently contributed smaller sums, aren't they customers deserving for better service? It is questionable whether continuing this kind of management is truly acceptable. At the very least, when the previous director made announcement or engaged in communication, there was a sense of expectations. This was because the director appeared to genuinely care about the game. So this time around, I deeply hope that they would bring some swift responses, timely updates, and meaningful communication with the community and the players. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. And always, thanks for your big support. Hope this video was a little help for your LostArk journey. And of course, if you like my videos, hit the sub for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.